Grant Hale was 50 years old, a quiet math teacher who loved morning coffee, weekend yard work, and leaving little notes on the fridge that made our son Evan and me smile. For 23 years, I believed I knew every corner of his heart. I believed our life together was steady, ordinary, and safe. That belief ended the morning I opened the bottom drawer of his desk. I had been cleaning his home office, trying to face the spaces he once filled. That was when I found a small USB drive tucked beneath stacks of lesson plans. The label on it was written in his familiar handwriting, "Marissa, only if I am gone." My hands shook as I plugged it into his laptop. A single video file appeared on the screen. The date showed it had been recorded just 2 weeks before his accident. When I pressed play, the man who appeared before me did not look like the husband I had lost. Grant's eyes were sunken, his face pale, his voice unsteady. He looked like a man carrying a weight far heavier than grief or illness. "Marissa," he began, "if you are watching this, then the life you shared with me was built on something you were never meant to discover. My name is not Grant Hale." In that moment the breath left my body. Whatever truth waited beyond that sentence was about to unravel everything I thought I understood about the man I had loved for more than 2 decades. Grant looked straight into the camera, and for a moment it felt as if he were staring directly into my living room. His hands trembled in his lap. He drew a deep breath, the kind someone takes when they already know their next words will destroy the person they love. "My name is not Grant Hale," he repeated. "My real name is Logan Reeves." I whispered the name aloud, testing it, searching my memory for any trace of it. There was none. It felt like speaking a stranger's name into the quiet room where my husband used to work. Logan continued, "I have lived under this identity for 25 years. I never meant to steal a life, but I did, and the cost of that mistake has followed me every single day." He paused and wiped his face as if reliving something unbearable. "I met a man named Michael Ashford when we were in college. We looked so similar that people joked we were brothers, same height, same build, same dark hair. He was the kind of friend who knew every secret I had, and he trusted me more than I deserved." Logan's voice thinned. 25 years ago, on a stormy night, I made a decision that destroyed everything. I was supposed to drive us home from a family dinner with the Ashfords. I promised Michael I would stay sober. I broke that promise. Heavy rain. A narrow mountain road. A moment of blurred vision. The car flipped into a ravine. I was thrown clear. His family was trapped inside. He swallowed hard before finishing. "They died, Marissa. All of them. Because of me." My chest tightened as his confession played on. The man I had shared a home with, the father of my child, was admitting to something I could not comprehend. The betrayal did not come from hatred or cruelty. It came from fear and a terrible mistake that spiraled into a lifetime of deception. And then he said the words that changed the entire story. "When I woke up on the ground, I saw Michael beside me. We looked alike, too alike. And in that moment of panic, I made a choice I have regretted every day since." Logan stared into the camera as if the memory itself was dragging him under. Rain hammered the windshield, he said. The car was upside down. I could hear metal groaning and water rushing in. I crawled across the mud trying to reach them, but the water rose too fast. By the time help arrived, they were gone. He lowered his eyes. I was the only one left breathing. He described how rescue lights flickered through the storm, casting long shadows across the wreckage. Paramedics rushed toward the vehicle, shouting commands. Logan said he felt a cold grip of terror as he realized the truth. He was drunk. Tests would expose him. Prison was waiting. His life as he knew it was over. Then came the moment that would change everything. He saw Michael's wallet on the ground beside him. Logan whispered, "The rain washed the blood from our faces. In the dark, with our clothes soaked and torn, even I could barely tell us apart. And in that moment, fear made me do something unforgivable." He took Michael's wallet. He placed his own beside Michael's body. He forced himself to lie still and told the first responder, "My name is Michael Ashford." Logan said the lie tasted like metal in his mouth, but no one questioned it. Michael had grown up in a small family with no extended relatives nearby. Logan knew enough about his background to answer their basic questions. When doctors asked about memory gaps, he blamed shock. The more he spoke, the colder my hands became. Every detail revealed how carefully he had built his new life. He completed Michael's teaching degree using hospital trauma as the excuse for missing knowledge. He found work in another state. He became Grant Hale by legally changing the name through paperwork that no one questioned at the time. For years he lived waiting for the knock on the door, the one that would expose it all. But the knock never came. Instead, he met me, and that was the moment he said he realized that his lie had grown roots. He had not only stolen a name, he had built an entire life on top of it. I stopped the video and let the silence settle around me. The house felt different now, as if every photo on the wall had shifted into a version of the truth I had never noticed. I wanted time to absorb what I had heard, but time was a luxury I did not have. Because without realizing it, my son Evan was already following the same trail of clues that had led me to the USB. That afternoon he walked into the kitchen holding a stack of papers he had found while preparing a memorial project about his father. "Mom," he said, "something is not right. These documents do not match the stories Dad told us." His voice carried confusion, not suspicion. He was looking for answers, not a scandal. I forced myself to stay calm. "What did you find?" Evan spread the papers across the table. Medical records with a different blood type than the one on Grant's driver license. A yearbook from a school Grant claimed he never attended. Letters addressed to a name that did not belong in our home. Logan Reeves. My stomach tightened. The secret I had uncovered only hours earlier was now knocking on my son's door. Evan leaned closer. "Dad always said he grew up in one town, but these papers reference another. And why would he keep letters from someone named Reeves asking for contact? Did he know this person?" His questions were innocent, but the answers were anything but. I placed a hand on his arm. "Evan, some things in your father's past were complicated. Looking too deeply might hurt more than it helps." He shook his head. "Mom, I just want to understand who Dad really was." His words felt like a weight pressing on my chest, because soon he would learn the truth, and that truth would break the image of the man who had raised him with kindness and patience. Evan was searching for pieces of his father. He had no idea that the biggest piece was a lie. I knew I could not keep the truth from Evan, not when he was already holding pieces of a puzzle that would only grow darker the longer he stared at them. That night after dinner, I asked him to sit with me in the living room. The room felt too quiet, too small for what I was about to reveal. "Evan," I said gently, "there is something you need to see, something your father recorded before he died." He frowned. "A video? Why did he never show us?" "Because he was afraid," I whispered. "Afraid of how it would change everything." I plugged the USB into the laptop and pressed play. Grant, or rather Logan, appeared on the screen, his face pale and lined with regret. For the first few minutes, Evan watched with confusion, then disbelief, then a grief so raw I could almost hear it break inside him. When Logan revealed his real name, Evan froze. When he confessed to the accident, Evan covered his mouth with both hands as if trying to hold in the shock. "Mom," Evan finally said, his voice trembling, "are you telling me that Dad was not Dad?" I felt tears sting my eyes. He was still your father in every way that mattered. But yes, his past was not what he told us. Evan stood and paced the room, his hands shaking. "He killed people, Mom. He took someone else's life, their name, their future. How could he live with that? How did we never know?" I tried to reach for him, but he pulled back, overwhelmed. Because he was ashamed, Evan. And because he loved us too much to risk losing us. He sat down, slowly staring at the blank television screen. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Do we tell the police? Do we tell the family of the people he hurt? Do we keep this quiet to protect his memory?" His questions fell heavy between us. There were no simple answers, only consequences. "We have to decide together," I said. "What we do next will shape our family forever." Evan looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed older. "Then let us face it," he whispered. "All of it." In that moment, I knew we had crossed a line we could never return from. The next morning, Evan and I returned to Grant's home office, no longer as a place of comfort but as a room filled with unanswered questions. The confession had shaken us, but it had also given us a direction. Logan had not just admitted the truth. He had left a map for us to follow. We searched through drawers, folders, and boxes he had never allowed anyone else to touch. Hours passed before Evan slid a hand behind the bottom panel of the desk and felt something loose. He pulled gently until a thin wooden board came free, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a thick envelope labeled simply "For whoever finds the truth." Evan looked at me silently before opening it. The contents spilled across the desk like pieces of a life Logan could never escape. Photographs of the crash site, printed copies of police reports, maps with notes scribbled in the margins, old letters addressed to the Ashford family, a typed timeline detailing everything from the night of the accident to the legal steps he took to claim Michael's identity. but the most devastating discovery was a sealed document labeled financial restitution. Inside, we found bank statements showing that Logan had been setting aside money for years. Over $300,000 saved quietly and patiently. Money he intended to give to the families he had hurt. Evan held the papers with trembling hands. He was planning to confess, he said in a quiet voice. He was getting ready to face everything. I nodded. Your father was trying to build the courage he needed. He just never reached the end of that road. At the bottom of the envelope we found one last page, a handwritten note in Logan's careful script. If I cannot finish the truth, please let the truth finish with you. Those words settled into the room like a final request, a request that now belonged to us. 2 days later, Evan and I sat in the car outside a modest brick house on the outskirts of Willow Creek. This was the address listed in the letters Logan had kept, the home of the Ashford family, the people whose lives had been shattered by the accident he caused. Are you ready? I asked Evan. No, he admitted, but we have to do this. We walked up the front steps and knocked. After a moment, the door opened to reveal an older woman with silver hair pulled into a neat braid. Her eyes were kind but tired, as if they carried decades of unanswered questions. Mrs. Ashford, I said softly. My name is Marissa Hale. This is my son Evan. We are here because we recently learned something important about what happened 25 years ago. Her breath caught. Is this about Michael? She whispered. I nodded. She led us into the living room. A man I assumed was her husband sat in an armchair watching us with wary eyes. Family photos lined the walls, all filled with faces that looked painfully familiar. Even after all these years, I could see the resemblance to Logan. I began slowly. My husband Grant, who recently passed away, recorded a confession. His real name was Logan Reeves. The room fell silent. When I explained what Logan had done the night of the accident, Mrs. Ashford pressed a hand to her chest. Her husband closed his eyes, as if something long buried had finally reached the surface. So Michael was not the one driving, she said in a trembling voice. For 25 years we believed our son was responsible for the accident. We believed he caused his own death and ours. Evan spoke gently. Logan wanted to tell you before he died. He saved money to give your family. He left letters. He carried the guilt every day. Mrs. Ashford wiped her tears. He lived as our son, she said softly. But he also tried to honor him, did he not? He became a teacher. He helped students. Michael wanted that. We sat together for nearly an hour listening, sharing, grieving. When we finally stood to leave, Mrs. Ashford squeezed my hands. Thank you for telling us, she said. Truth hurts, but silence is worse. As we walked back to the car, I felt something shift inside me. Painful, yes, but also necessary. One family could finally breathe again. And ours had taken the first step toward healing. In the days following our visit to the Ashfords, reality began to shift in ways I had not fully prepared for. The truth was no longer something held inside our home. It was something alive, moving, spreading, reaching places where Grant, or rather Logan, had never dared to go. The first call came from our family attorney, Ms. Vernon. I sent her the confession and the documents we found. She asked us to come in immediately. When Evan and I sat across from her desk, she folded her hands and gave us a look I will never forget. This is an extraordinary situation, she said gently. Your husband lived under a false identity for more than 2 decades. There will be legal consequences. What kind? Evan asked quietly. For one, your marriage was entered under a name that was not legally his. The state may require a validation process to confirm it remains binding. There may also be questions about property, benefits, and pension funds tied to the name Grant Hale. I felt my stomach tighten. 23 years of marriage, and yet suddenly some part of the law saw me as a woman who might not have truly known her husband at all. And me, Evan asked, what happens to my identity? Ms. Vernon spoke carefully. Your birth certificate lists a father who did not legally exist. You may need to amend your records. It is your choice whether to continue as Evan Hale or to reclaim your father's real name, Evan Reeves. The weight of her words settled over us. It felt as if the man we loved had unknowingly placed us on a path where every step forward required letting go of something familiar. Outside the office, a breeze moved through the trees. Evan looked at me with eyes full of both sadness and determination. Everything he built is coming apart, he said. I nodded. Yes, but maybe it has to fall apart before it can be rebuilt honestly. It was the first time that rebuilding felt possible. Over the next few weeks, Evan and I found ourselves slowly stepping out of grief and into responsibility. The truth had broken our old life apart, but it had also revealed something unexpected. Logan had not only carried guilt, he had tried to shape that guilt into something that could help others. It was Evan who suggested we finish what his father started. "Mom," he said one evening sitting across the dining table, "I don't want this story to end with what he did wrong. I want it to end with what we do right." Together we reached out to the Ashfords again, this time with a proposal. Logan had saved more than $300,000 for restitution. Instead of handing it over quietly, we wanted to use it to create something lasting, something that honored the family whose name he stole, something that honored the life he tried to imitate. The Ashfords agreed, and so the Michael Ashford Scholarship Fund was born. Its mission was simple: support students who wanted to become teachers, students who came from difficult backgrounds, students who reminded the world of the young man Logan had once taken so much from. Local schools began to hear about the fund, and donations trickled in from people who had known Michael, people who had known Grant, and people who simply believed in second chances. But the biggest transformation came from Evan himself. One morning he told me he had made a decision. "I want to teach math," he said. "I want to step into the classroom Dad stood in. Not to erase what he did, but to continue the good he tried to build." I felt a quiet pride settle in my chest. In choosing his father's real name and his father's chosen path, Evan was not carrying the burden. He was reshaping it. Sometimes healing does not come from forgetting the truth, but from giving it somewhere new to live. A full year passed before I understood what the truth had really given us. Not closure, not forgiveness, something quieter, something steadier. A chance to begin again without the weight of a lie holding up the ground beneath our feet. Evan began teaching at Willow Creek High School, the same district where his father had once stood in front of a classroom. He introduced himself to his students as Evan Reeves with a steady voice that carried both pain and pride. When he told them that everyone deserves a second chance to learn, he meant it in a way no textbook ever could. The scholarship fund grew beyond anything we imagined. More students applied each year, many of them young people who had faced their own mistakes or hardships. The Ashfords attended the awards ceremony every spring, standing beside us not as people divided by tragedy but as people connected by purpose. As for me, I still think of Logan sometimes late at night when the house is quiet. I think of the man he pretended to be and the man he wished he had been. I think of the courage it took for him to record that confession knowing it might shatter everything. And I think of the final gift he unknowingly left behind. The truth did not destroy us, it remade us. If you have stayed with me through this journey, I hope you will share your thoughts below. Stories like this remind us that secrets cast long shadows, but honesty, even painful honesty, can lead us somewhere better. Please like, share, and comment where you are watching from. And subscribe to The Art of Revenge for more stories that reveal the hidden corners of